We talked about a little bit at the beginning, the challenges of the football. You talked about you don't see it a lot. It's still a challenge. We get pretty good tracking data on the football. We have a chip in there. We have optical tracking. But the challenge with tracking it with either solution when it's at the bottom of 22 men is hard, because in the same scenario where optical doesn't work, which is I can't see the football with cameras because it's covered by 22 people, is the same scenario where it doesn't work great with ultra wideband, because ultra wideband is an RF signal that doesn't transmit through water, and the human body is mostly water. So when it's at the bottom of a pile up, we still get data. It's not completely gone, but it's not as good as when it's flying through the air and all of our sensors are getting that RF signal. So finding a solution that can help us get more precise and better ball data, I think no secret to our partners, because we talk to them about it every year. We want to get better ball data and the importance of spotting the football. I think we're always looking for better football data is one area that I would say we're really pushing our partners and looking if there are other technologies that can help.
The NFL's Next Gen Stats started out as a working project name. Nobody gave it much thought. It just stuck. Today, Next Gen Stats powers broadcast graphics, officiating decisions, coaching strategy, health and safety research, and even the Madden video game. Josh Helmrich was the NFL's first full-time hire on their ball and player tracking initiatives and has been at the center of its evolution ever since. In this episode, we get into why the NFL originally chose wearables over optical tracking and what's changed since, how their innovation program, the Big Data Bowl, surfaced a winning model from a Japanese team that had never watched American football, what the Next Gen Stats, where Next Gen Stats goes next, and what kind of technology partners the NFL is currently looking for. Here's my conversation with Josh Helmrich, Senior Director of Media Strategy, Business Development, and Next Gen Stats at the NFL. Josh, we're doing this virtually because, well, we tried to do this in person in Düsseldorf at Sports Innovation, but we couldn't set that up. But we're glad to do it at least here. How's Düsseldorf for you? What do you think of the
I
event?
think it's a great conference. It's a great collection of people in sports and media and technology that, groups of them get together in other places, but I think it's unique to get that whole group together. So I love it. I've been to 3 of the 4 sport innovation conferences. I think it's a really worthwhile.
For our listeners, we're talking about the DFL's Sports Innovation event. They put it on once in 2 years. So it is quite a bit of a rarity. If you're talking about a 3-year, I think I've also been there thrice, like veterans of the event kind of thing. That means we've been going there for a while. And the DFL the Bundesliga uses it to showcase all the great partnerships and all the cool tech that has been working on. And what they do a really good job of is bringing people such as yourself. I remember watching you on stage, I think in the last edition with AWS, if I remember that correctly, right? And you were talking about
the previous iteration of the event. Yeah, this year we talked, it wasn't AWS, although they're still a very big partner of ours. It was with Marcus Kuhn, who's a commentator on NFL games in Germany. And it was us two talking about how data is evolving the media experience for our fans.
And it's an interesting one. I mean, I didn't catch that conversation. Of course, there's a lot going on at the event, but the NFL is an interesting one, especially in Europe. I mean, I watched my first NFL game not that long ago in Berlin. And I think there was a Colts, I think Indianapolis played Atlanta, if I remember correctly. And most of the stadium was blue, and I was there on a Colts invite. So it was nice that the Colts won. But it was really interesting to see how the whole stadium really took, like you felt that Germans were invested in that game. Like there was turnout, there was a strong momentum. Is that kind of what the NFL is seeing as well, as you build an audience in Germany, in Spain, in the UK, of course, where you've been there for a while? Are these geographies really a priority?
Yeah, I mean, the international expansion is something I help contribute to, but it's certainly not, and the strategy behind it is certainly not my area of expertise. I would tell you, in the games that I've been fortunate to go to a few of the international ones, and the excitement amongst the fans and the passion is unbelievable. It's certainly a mix of expats and U.S. fans traveling and using it as an excuse to go visit some of these cities, but certainly a huge percentage of local fans, and it's great to see that. And I think the hope is by giving them access to real NFL meaningful games, you grow a fan base there that lasts beyond just that 3 hour window, but will come back and watch games from then on. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the excitement has been amazing. There are lots of priority markets. Germany, we played a lot of games in. We played for years in the UK, but we're playing in Australia for the first time. We're returning back to Brazil for the second year in a row. We're going to be playing in Mexico City. So I think there's just a lot of really exciting growth internationally for the NFL.
Let's use that as a jumping off point into what you do spend your time focusing on. I mean, your official title is on media strategy, biz dev, and next gen stats. And maybe I'll start with the last one on the next gen stats side, because just by going through your bios, my team prepared it. Like, you're one of the founding members of what was basically a new initiative, right? It was kind of like an entrepreneur sort of role, where within the NFL there was this small maybe project which has become like a pretty important part of the broadcast experience. And as you talk about the fan experience, how a fan understands and engages with the NFL. Talk to me about the evolution of that. Where's the genesis of that idea? And then what is the path to it becoming what it is today?
Yeah, so I very fortunate to be the first full-time person on Next Gen Stats when I'd been at the NFL for a couple years. This was an idea, player and ball tracking, and Next Gen Stats was a working name for that project. And so I was lucky to be the first full-time person on it. And the idea, even from the beginning, which I can't take credit for, was really to just be this platform that benefited the entire ecosystem of the NFL. So yes, media, but also health and safety, coaching, scouting, our video game partners, the in-stadium experience, and the list goes on. The idea was to benefit everyone that touches NFL football. And so what happened was we got the right to put a tracking device on the players, which before that, if it was a voluntary thing, I think you can't really build a business around it if you have some people opting in and some opting out. So once we had the ability to put a device on the players, I think we went with a little more earnest focus on let's go figure out the right technology partner. We looked all around the globe for different technology partners, identified the right one, and then set out to build this platform once we started getting data. Because the first year I think the first game of tracking, just from a pure data size standpoint, we got more data in that first game than the entire history of the NFL database set going back to the beginning of the NFL. And so we got all this raw data. What do we do with it? And so it's been an evolution, but we're 10 plus years in tracking, and we've really started to check the box in all the areas. The data is used to spot punts out of bounds for officiating purposes, to evaluate rule changes when we changed our kickoff rules a couple years ago. It's used by coaches and scouts as they prepare and evaluate players. EA uses it to make Madden more realistic. All of our broadcast partners are using the data. It's used in stadium to show some of the fastest players or the most improbable catches. So we're really using it around the world of NFL football, but it's been an evolution, and every year we get a little bit better and find new use cases. And so I still think we're at the, relatively speaking, beginning part of the evolution, but it's come a long way.
I want to start I'm always interested in the data collection part, because that's the origin point, right? That's what the core source of that data. Where did it start on the athlete, and how much is that sensor or sensors? Because I think there are multiple now, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. How have those grown over this 10-year period?
Yeah. So, I mean, data historically had not changed or evolved in the history of the football. I mean, I think yards rushing, yards passing, tackles, those have been stats forever. And so technology allowed us to get more in depth and get a better understanding of what the game is. We looked at different technologies. We looked at ultra-wideband, infrared, optical tracking. We looked at lots of different options. Our game's a little unique compared to some other sports where players are maybe more spread out, or the action that matters happens in a very confined space. Strike zone in baseball is the same couple square feet, and tennis, the lines don't move and it's a relatively small court. And I'm not as concerned inside the lines, just the boundary. NFL, we need to know where everything happens for the full length of the field, whether it's a first down, a touchdown, a tackle, spotting of the football. So it was hard. We decided ultra wideband RF solution, a wearable solution, was best for us at the time. And so, yes, we put started with 2 per player. It's evolved some of the linemen were 3 devices, and the football has 1 inside the football. But in general, the hardware itself hasn't evolved all that much, and neither has the data. The data's gotten a little more accurate, a little more consistent, but the way we use it has evolved. Last year, for the first time, we added an optical, and so we marry optical tracking with wearable. So we really feel like we have a strong data set to know, have a digital record of what happened on the field. And then as we come up with new ideas or new stats, we can go back in time and apply them. So the first year or two of tracking, the stats were as simple as top speed, total distance run. And then when we come up with things like completion probability, expected rushing yards, we can go back in time and apply them because we have that complete digital record. So it's certainly evolved over time.
It's interesting that you mentioned that optical came in only last year. Optical has been in use for various sports for the best part of a decade. And I think I heard an interesting argument, which you don't even realize sometimes it's the simplest thing. Like in American football, you don't see the ball a lot. Like if the players are crashing on it and the ball is under the ruck, they're just covered by the players, you don't see it. So there's no point in relying on that on its own. Of course, you now as a cross reference, it might be useful in various ways. But that's an interesting limitation. Have you found anything else which was unique about American football? Which, as you said, I mean, you have to cover every blade of grass or astroturf. You have to make sure that there's a sensor in the players and the ball. And now you've added optical. Is there something else that you found along the way that you tried and didn't work, or now that you're looking to try again?
Well, I mean, optical is one of the things that we tried before and didn't
Mm.
work, and now we've tried again. I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, it was certainly one of the solutions we looked at 15 years ago, 12 years ago, and it just wasn't good enough with our game and all the occlusions that happened and where the technology was at the time. But they've gotten a lot better, in part with some of the work that they've done with other sports. There are a few major players out there, and all of them have progressed significantly. So we deployed one partner, we've tested multiple, but I would say all of them are significantly better than anything we saw 10, 12
Mm.
years ago. And they still are not perfect, but really they're made better by combining the 2 data sets because of the occlusion. If I can't ever lose a player and show 11 versus 10 for a couple frames, but if I marry that optical with the wearable, I know with certainty that I still have 11 on 11. So combining them together has really made it powerful. And like I said, the optical providers have come a long way.
And I think this is something that other sports are also, especially football, is starting to pick up a bit. Like there is a lot of benefit in putting a sensor in that ball, which it's been there in some events. No, it's not there in all the time. Of course, at the World Cup and stuff, you have it for goal line technology. But now as that technology becomes more accessible, you're seeing that becoming more available. It's an interesting use case of marrying optical with sensors on the ball. Last one on next gen stats. You mentioned right at the start, there were multiple use cases, right? Obviously from scouting to player analytics, etc., to then broadcasting and so on. Were there a couple of key use cases that we like, hey, we need to get these right at the start, and then some which have evolved, or it was always going to be, hey, this is a really rich data set that has multi utility, and we need to grow it from that perspective?
Yeah, it was probably more the latter than the former. I mean, I think we knew certain buckets, right? Like this had to benefit the fans, this had to benefit health and safety, this had to benefit certain areas, but the specific ways it was going to do that, I don't think anyone really knew until we started to collect data and experiment with it and share it. So I wouldn't say there was one or two. It's interesting in talking with the other leagues. They had similar origin stories, but some of them were like, we just know this is good for the game. We're going to do it. We're not focused on making money off it. We're not focused on X, Y, or Z. We're just going to do this and figure it out. I think we were somewhere in the middle. We're like, hey, we want to make a business out of this, but we know that there's a couple really important areas that this is going to serve, some of which will make money and some of which won't. And so we know it's going to benefit the NFL, and we're going to set out and do this and make all of them come to life. And so we've done that, but it's evolved in each one of those areas. So I wouldn't say there was like one specific stat or one specific use case that we focused on. It was more, these are the areas, and part of the way we did that was allowing smart people in those respective areas to have access to the data and use the data. And so whether that's providing raw data to the clubs and allowing coaches and scouts to use the data and find new use cases that benefit them, or providing it to our health and safety partners who use the data and apply it in ways that we wouldn't have thought of, or to our officiating department. Similarly, they're using it to study, if we add an extra official, where would we put him? Where's the lack of coverage on the field? So these are things that we wouldn't have thought of. Our goal is to create the most accurate, most consistent platform. And if we can identify these ideas, that's great, but also enable the stakeholders in each respective area to come up with these new use cases and use our platform to add value to their areas.
Before we continue, a quick word from us at Sports Tech X. If you're building, investing, or operating in sports tech, you need to know what's moving in the global ecosystem before anyone else does. Sports Tech X's Intelligence Hub gives you that edge. Over 8,000 companies, investors, events, and programs all in one place. Sign up for free. That's intelligence.sportstechx.com. And be sure to check out the show notes of this episode for a little surprise waiting for you. Now, back to the episode.
That's the beauty of coming up with something super interesting, right? Like, I mean, unlock so many opportunities that you didn't even conceive of at the origin. As long as you build a solid platform, create access for everybody to then go and build what they need off it. And then I think, I'm just looking at the evolution. I think you brought AWS as a partner in 2017, and then that, I guess, beefs up the infrastructure a bit. Around that same time, it looks like around 2017, 18-ish, correct me if I'm wrong, you also started working on the big data bowl. Is that something that just came naturally as an evolution of what Next Gen Stats was doing? And first, walk us through, what is the big data bowl? What is the objective that it serves? And how have you seen that also evolve over the years?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. Yes, it was an evolution, but we had shared data before as sort of a hackathon. And the idea here was similar to what I mentioned earlier, was like, let's get other smart people looking at our data and see what they can do with it. And so it was a little bit of a hackathon, which you see in other areas of tech, like provide a problem, and in this case also some data that they can't otherwise get access to, and see what sort of solutions come back. And we got a lot of interesting solutions. I mean, some of the winners of the big data bowl have served as the start for our models that we productize, like expected rushing yards or completion probability. And what we also saw that was maybe an unintended consequence at the beginning, but became very intentional, was you really started to identify talent of people that could work with this data. And whether that's talent that could work for us at the league office, or whether it could work for us at the league office, NFL media related, or our clubs, I think we saw that the big data bowl served as an opportunity to identify real talent. And so I forget the latest number, but it's quite a high number of people have been hired, but from the big data bowl, to work at clubs. I know several have worked for us at the league office or NFL media. And so it's really amazing to see from where we started, where there were a few submissions, to now you sit in that room, and not only are there hundreds of people attending, all of the 32 NFL clubs, there are all these companies that analyze the data and look for talent themselves, but it's really become this robust ecosystem of football, American football, analytics, data, companies, and people that didn't exist when we started doing this. So it's really, really cool to see.
Super interesting, right? When you give people an opportunity, especially when it is something like, hey, you want to mess around with NFL data or like that, that's like, I'm not a big data guy, I am a big data guy. I'm not qualified, I mean, technically as a data scientist or anything, but I would show up and see what I can mess around with, right? It just sounds like
And
an
they win some
incredible,
money. I mean, I even mentioned
right?
that, but some of these kids, when it's what would have been real money to me at the time, is still real money to me. So yeah, it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's like $100K prize pool or something. That is a
I
pretty
think it's
penny.
a little less than that the players. Yeah, they split it up. I mean, it's
Okay.
really a good opportunity.
Fair enough. Yeah, you've had a few editions of that. Maybe you mentioned that a lot of interesting things have come off it, obviously highlighting good talent. Maybe you can talk about one or two use cases. You mentioned a couple of stats specifically that are now integrated into, let's say, next gen stats or other stuff.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
something else?
I think those stats are interesting, but one of the more unique stories is one of the winners of the Big Data Bowl didn't speak English at all. And they came over, they didn't, had never seen American football. They purely treated it like a data problem and they analyzed it. And I think it was for I think, I'm not positive, I think it was for the expected rushing model. And so one of the really amazing things was a lot of great applicants submitted their models and we want to predict the rushing yards. And we looked at whose models were great. And there was one that stood way above. There was a bunch of good ones and then one great one. And that great one was by these folks that didn't speak English and had never seen American football. And so to have them come present through an interpreter and see how great their model was, they had no interest, by the way, in working in an NFL club or moving to the US. I think it was a couple that worked on it with a young child. But to see that they could create such an amazing model by purely treating it as a data problem was really, really fascinating and eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people because their model was great and it did serve as a start for what became our expected rushing model, but really just fantastic story.
Fascinating. Where did they come from?
I want to say Japan, but I'm not sure. This was
Okay,
several
interesting.
years ago. I would need to
Interesting.
go back, but I think Japan.
Fair enough. I mean, that itself is such an interesting use case. Somebody who just comes in and takes in that outside point of view and creates a new line of thinking. The reason I ask about next-gen stats and the big data bowl and all of that, I mean, of course, our audience with Sports Tech X is around innovation, anything new in sports, but also that connects with, as you said, solution providers, startups, companies that are either born from an opportunity like this that you provide, or like this, you kind of create a platform where existing solutions can come in and say, hey, here's how we can help. How much does the NFL, or either through you in your current role in strategy and biz dev, or some of the stuff that you look at, how much do you proactively go and look out for new solutions and see, hey, how does the NFL work with that? Or does the NFL kind of take an approach of, hey, we're not the place to experiment, like go to the NCAA, go to Big Ten, whatever, go to some of the other collegiate leagues or other leagues in other countries, run your programs there, run your solutions there. And if it's mature enough, then we'll take a look. Like, what is the NFL's position when it comes to innovation projects?
I mean, I think it's somewhere in the middle of those two. Part of the reason I'm at Sport Innovation, right, the conference, is to make sure we're abreast of the best technologies that are out there. And every year, every time that our vendor deals come up, we, even though we're very happy with our existing partners, we think it's our responsibility to the NFL to go out and test the marketplace and see if there's any new players that have emerged and test anyone who's a viable candidate. And so we do that every time. But I think there's different bars, right? To put an optical solution in, if you've proven you can do something, it's maybe a lower bar than if I'm putting something on a player or in the football. It's a pretty high bar. You better be pretty far along in demonstrating your capabilities versus theoretical. But that said, I think we always want to know what's going on and what is out there. And so we're constantly looking for the best technology partners and we're testing them where it makes sense and where it's appropriate.
So what is the thing that you're looking for right now? What are the areas that you're especially interested in terms of, hey, where are we proactively looking for? Need a solution here, or something is a bit more passive, like, hey, I'd love for something like this to come up.
We talked about a little bit at the beginning, the challenges of the football. You talked about you don't see it a lot. It's still a challenge. We get pretty good tracking data on the football. We have a chip in there. We have optical tracking. But it's the challenge with tracking it with either solution when it's at the bottom of 22 men is hard, because in the same scenario where optical doesn't work, which is I can't see the football with cameras because it's covered by 22 people, is the same scenario where it doesn't work great with ultra wideband, because ultra wideband is an RF signal that doesn't transmit through water, and the human body is mostly water. So when it's at the bottom of a pile up, we still get data. It's not completely gone, but it's not as good as when it's flying through the air and all of our sensors are getting that RF signal. So finding a solution that can help us get more precise and better ball data, I think no secret to our partners, because we talk to them about it every year. We want to get better ball data and the importance of spotting the football. I think we're always looking for better football data is one area that I would say we're really pushing our partners and looking if there are other technologies that can help.
So you said that is something that you're actively looking for, which is
Yep.
to solve the data problem on the ball. But is there something you're like, hey, if something shows up in this area, maybe it's a bit out there, a bit futuristic, but if something pops up here, we'd definitely be interested.
I mean, I think it's a combination of like putting a task or a prompt out there to our partners and saying, this is important to us. What can you do? But then also there's a combination of what's realistic. So if we're asking for something that, um, isn't possible or doesn't exist, then that's what it is. And we keep looking and we keep looking. I think people come to us with things. We are interested and we'll evaluate them if they are realistic. And otherwise, we're continuing to look for solutions for problems we have. Like the football one, we're out there talking to partners and seeing who else can help solve the problem.
Open to anything, I guess. All right, Josh, what's next? What does the next 12, 18 months look like? What are the high priority items for you?
Well, like I said, this was the first year of using optical tracking for a full season. And so figuring out what are those new use cases that become unlocked with optical tracking, and how are we improving upon the use cases that we already had with the wearable data. Now that we have this richer data set, what new use cases come out of that? I think we're just dipping our toe in the water there. We have a lot of great use cases, and that was getting 1 point per player 10 times a second and 20 times a second on the football. Now we have 29 points per player 10 times a second. And so what can we do with that? And how do we improve upon areas we're already using the data? I think that's what's next. And figuring out not just in one area, right? How do we spot the football better is maybe an officiating use case, but how do I use it to improve the fan experience, our video game partners, scouting, coaching? So we are actively working on a bunch of those different areas with the stakeholders in those areas, but figuring out more and new use cases for optical tracking.
And we look forward to seeing what comes out of it. Josh, is there a call to action for our audience? Are you looking for new partners, looking for new geographies that you're interested in? Are you hiring? Anything that somebody might be
I mean, I
interested
think
in?
all of it, if people have a good technology, and what I think will be unique about your audience is they're active viewers and participants of sports beyond American football. And we know sometimes in the US, we're not as up to speed on the way technology is used in some of the other games. And so we try to talk to all the other leagues, but especially internationally, like seeing what technologies are out there. If people have good ideas, we are open to them. And I think even though American football is and the NFL is this big brand, if you look over the history of I've been here 17 years, the game has changed quite significantly, both in how we use technology, the rule changes that we've enacted. So I think we're open to change if it makes sense. And so if people have good ideas or good technology applications, we are open to it, and don't be shy about bringing it to us.
Brilliant. That's a good place to leave it, Josh. I think if somebody wants to reach out to you, maybe LinkedIn or your email is a good place to do that. We'll drop your LinkedIn in the show notes. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time. Before I let you go, I have one last question. It's a question I always end our pod on. I want to know what has been your favorite sporting moment. Before I let you answer, little birdie did tell me that I believe you won an Ivy League championship in 2006. So did you finish second? Were you like in the top two, somewhere around there?
We won the Ivy championship when I was a sophomore in college. But is this question about moment in sport, or as a player, as a fan,
Which is
as a
why
whatever?
Which is why I threw it out there. Usually we ask about it as a fan, but I know you've had a illustrious career as a college athlete, if I can put that in that way. So maybe I'll give you one of each, maybe as a player and as a fan.
As a fan, I think it's tough to beat. This photo above me is a Super Bowl where the Steelers beat the Arizona Cardinals in Tampa Bay. It was the first Super Bowl I attended, and I was not yet working at the NFL. I was there with my dad, and we happened to be in the end zone where this catch happened.
Wow.
And won the game. Ended up being the game winner. And so I've been fortunate to go to a bunch of Super Bowls since, but I think nothing will.
Did you just get tickets? Like, how do you end up with that view on
Yeah.
the Super Bowl?
I mean, mostly luck. I got them on eBay back then, which was before StubHub, and I bought my ticket. It was my parents were like, it will be a college graduation gift. We'll pay for travel if you pay for your ticket. So I was like charting ticket brokers and eBay, and I ended up buying this ticket with like every dollar I had. And now it wouldn't even get you in the top row, whatever I paid back then. But that was a great, memorable one that I'll never forget. As a player, Ivy Championship was memorable, but I think it's hard to beat high school. In America, high school football, you play with the kids you grew up from the time you're 5, 6, 7, started playing sports through becoming 18-year-olds as seniors in high school. And so we had a really good season my senior year in high school and play with a couple. One person went on to play in the NFL and a bunch that went on to play in college. And we had a couple really, really memorable games. So I'd say my senior year in high school football was probably the most memorable.
Which high school is this?
It's Upper St. Clair, suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Upper St. Clair. All right, we'll go and try to find what is a successful season that Josh is talking about. Well, thank you, Josh, once again for taking the time. It was great to hear about all the cool stuff that the NFL is up to, especially from a data perspective, and more interestingly, what you're looking for and what are the possibilities. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for another episode. See you guys next week.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Sports Tech All-Stars podcast. If this conversation gave you something, a new angle, a name to follow, a deal to think about, please share it with someone in your network who needs to hear it. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, a quick rating takes a few seconds and helps more people find the show. If you're not on our weekly newsletter yet, fix that at newsletter.sportstechx.com to join 20,000 other sports business leaders. For deeper intel on sports innovation, investment, and where capital is moving in sports, head to sportstechx.com or follow us on socials, on our LinkedIn. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so that the next conversation finds you. See you in the next one.